Okay.
This is an interview at the Clarion Hotel, Oneonta, New York. It is the 24th of March 2004, approximately 1 p.m. Interviewers are Wayne Clark and Mike Russert. Could you give me your full name, your date of birth, and place of birth, please?
First name is Gilbert. Mark, M-A-R-K, and Vortkamp, V-O-R-T-K-A-M-P.
Okay. When and where were you born, please?
I was born in Brooklyn, but I didn't stay there.
Okay. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Bergen County, New Jersey.
All right. When were you born?
4th of March, 1925.
Okay. So you just had a birthday.
Yeah, again. I don't count them anymore. I stopped a long time ago.
What was your educational background prior to entering service?
Up to high school.
Okay. Do you remember where you were and your reaction when you heard about Pearl Harbor?
I had to be home because we had everything we did was on the property. And it's a shock, you know.
Okay. Did you enlist or were you drafted?
I was drafted because I was the only son, only child in my family, and we had a farm, and I guess I was doing most of the work.
Well, you were drafted, though.
I tried to stay there and do the work because my father wasn't that well to do it himself.
Okay. Where did you go for your induction?
You mean for the selective or in the military itself?
The military itself.
Fort Dix.
Fort Dix, okay. So you did your basic training there?
No.
Where did you go for basic?
Rockford, Illinois.
All right. Was this basically the first time you were away from home?
I guess it was, yeah.
How'd you feel about that?
I've been away on trips, but not for this length of time.
Yeah. How did you feel about that? Did you know anyone with you that was in the group with you at all?
No one. No one at all.
Okay. Now,
It was quite a mixture. People off the street, so to speak. People that were educated, people that were farmers, people that were accountants, that type of thing. Everybody was from a different area. It was just one big mixture.
How did everybody get along? All right? Or were
Well,
there
was
problems?
some loudmouths, you know,
Uh-huh.
that thought they knew it all, but nobody paid attention, really.
how long were you there for basic training?
3 months.
Okay. And did you go anywhere for specialized training?
Well, at the basic training, I included specialized with mechanics, taking care of the trucks, jeeps, everything, tearing them all apart, putting them all back together again.
Did you work on motorcycles too, or just...
No motorcycles. We had very few motorcycles.
Now, I noticed initially you were assigned to a medical battalion.
First
No.
medics.
Was that with as a mechanic, or did you have medical training?
Well, I had the medical training, but I also was assigned as a truck driver. I carried all the medical supplies. Like when on D-Day on the beach, I think, I could be wrong, but I think I was the first truck on the beach with medical supplies. Because we had two of them duplicate in case one got blown up. We had another duplicate that was following. But both of us made it. But I had the first load. I had plasma, I had alcohol, I had a couple cases of whiskey, I had all the I Atterburn most of the guys that were with me all came from Africa, and they had malaria, so they had a lot of Atterburn.
Were you under fire at the time when you landed?
Oh yeah, it's like a 4th of July.
Now, what size truck did you have?
2.5 ton.
It was a 2.5 ton, okay. So you came in on a big target. What, what kind of landing craft did you come in on?
Infantry.
Mhm.
I was one truck on the craft with the infantrymen all around me.
What do you remember about D-Day?
Everything. It's something you can't forget.
What beach did you land on?
Omaha, the worst one.
Were you wounded at all there?
Not on the beach.
Okay.
Later on, yeah, but not on the beach. The only thing I lost on the beach was my hair. All my hair came out. I was bald. I could go up here and give you a whole handful of hair, or give the other hand, give you another handful. You know?
Did you ever find out what caused that?
No, they had all kinds of stories, but when I was out in Illinois, they gave you 7 shots toward going overseas. When I got back, I left from around Boston, and they gave me 7 shots again because they didn't know where my records were.
Uh-huh.
I got over in England, and they no trace of my records, the medical records. So they gave me 7 shots again. I think that's what did it.
Uh-huh.
I think that there was 21 shots instead of 7. It's just my theory, because nobody else could come up with anything.
Uh-huh.
Why didn't all the others lose their hair too? One doctor said, you were scared. You lost your hair. In other words, says, you're drinking the water out of the brook. That probably did it. But everybody was.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's those shots.
Now, once you got ashore with the truck, where did you go with it?
We had a ramp, but it was there already, you know. But it had been, they cleared the mines out of the ramp. I drove it up into a bunch of brush on the side and parked it there. And it had to be de-waterproofed. So I had to quickly get all the waterproofing stuff out off the battery, the vent for the gas tank, and I had a pipe up in the air for the intake for the carburetor. And all that had to be done so as soon as possible. So that's what pulled into this area and sat there and did all this de-waterproofing.
So when you pulled off the landing craft, were you in deep water with the truck?
Up to here.
Really?
The steering wheel was underwater.
That's interesting.
Yeah, now.
And the brakes worked and everything.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't for that long, you know.
Yeah.
But it ran like a trooper underwater. Because I had all the wires waterproofed. They were all packed in waterproofing.
Uh-huh.
Distributors all packed in waterproofing. Every little vent, any place in the engine or any place in the rear end, had to have the vent sealed so no water would get into the grease.
Now, you sealed it with like grease and like masking tape or something?
No, they had a compound,
Uh-huh.
especially for that. Waterproofing compound. It was something like, you can mold it like clay,
Uh-huh.
you know.
Once you de-waterproofed the truck, did you stay with the truck?
Yeah.
And you were in charge of all the supplies that were on board?
That were on the truck, yeah.
Did they end up setting up a hospital section on the shore, or?
Well, not on the shore there, no. They had a hospital ship for that.
Uh-huh.
But
So your equipment basically was for medics that were on the beachhead To treat the wounded before they went out to the hospital ship?
Yeah. That's all through the war. We always treated them first before they went back to a hospital.
Mhm.
In fact, we used to have field hospitals. But the field hospital is maybe 50 miles behind the lines. What we had is, and are you familiar with what a military division is?
Yes.
We had three regiments,
Mhm.
and we had a company of medics with each regiment. We had A company, B company, C company. They each had ambulances. The first line, the first aid man that was with the infantry, he would treat them there, bring them back to his aid station. The aid station would put them in the first ambulance they could get, bring them back to what we call D company. It was the clearance, and where we separated how badly they were wounded or whatever,
Mhm.
And then the ones that had to go quickly, we had another line of ambulances coming to take them back to the field hospital. But they were treated there as far as they could. We set up a tent, sealed up with no lights, and then we could operate inside the tent, for emergency repairs.
Mhm. Now, did you have Red Cross markings on your truck?
Only on the canvas. That canvas that covered everything to keep it from getting wet. Had big red crosses on that.
Now, when you came ashore, then you had this canvas on your truck. Did you receive fire?
Not direct.
Mhm.
There was sprinkles of stuff that you couldn't miss. It was
Yes,
landed
right.
over there, and
Yeah.
some of the shrapnel came over here.
Mhm.
That type of thing. But I didn't get any direct hits, no. If they were paying attention to that, I didn't know, but it didn't happen.
Now, when you kept this truck filled then, how were you resupplied?
We had a smaller truck. It would go back and pick up whatever we needed that was sold out, so to speak. And he would bring it, we'd put it back in again, keep it in stock. And, blood plasma and all different.
Now, did you sleep on the truck or close to it just for security purposes?
Under it.
Under it, okay.
8 wheels in the back, and I'd try to get between them.
Uh-huh.
At one point, I had 5 tires blown off at night.
Now, did you have someone with you in the cab, or were you alone?
I was always alone.
Now, being with a medical unit, did you carry any weapons at all?
We weren't supposed to,
Mhm.
but I'm sorry we did. Just in case, under the seat,
What did you carry?
There was a pistol. Just in case something came up that they didn't recognize the Red Cross,
Was it a government issue pistol or something you picked up somewhere?
Something I liberated from a German officer.
Okay.
All right, now, you mentioned you were in combat for a large number of consecutive days. How long had you been in combat?
Almost a year.
I saw that. You said almost...
Without a let-up. Consecutive. See what I mean? I was out of touch of my outfit for many times. Like I said, I was a wild card, so to speak.
Mhm.
Now, what do you mean by that, wild card?
Well, if the artillery was running out of shells, off comes the Red Cross, unload the truck, and they put a tent over it, and I got an empty truck, and I head out and load artillery shells and bring them up to the guns. gasoline. Tanks are running out of gasoline. I put 300 cans of gas in 5-gallon cans on the back of the truck. And I bring it up there and unload them and get the tanks running again. It could be food. I've gone back to pick up cases of food as sea rations and bring them up to the guys that had something to eat. I was running what they call detached service most of the time. I was even taken detached from the 1st Army to the 3rd Army because they needed more equipment for the whole gasoline for their tanks.
Did you ever have to transport wounded in your truck?
I put 3 stretchers in the back, or I put 21 body bags.
So you had to carry the dead also?
Yeah. If I went forward with a load of gasoline, I could go back with body bags or go back with wounded. Whatever works for the moment.
Now, you said you were wounded by shrapnel?
Now and then, yeah. Nothing serious.
You never thought you were wounded seriously enough to apply for a Purple Heart, or because I noticed you didn't say you had one?
If you saw the guys that I saw, minus the leg or arm, screaming out of their head because of the shock, and I'm going to get for the scratches I got, the Purple Heart, I never even asked. I didn't really want it. I just, at that time, I said, forget it, you know. I would feel, I don't know how it'd feel, but I just wouldn't feel right. I know that we saw some guys get a scratch on their hand, they got a Purple Heart for it. So the Purple Heart didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned in this form that you filled out that you basically not only were the driver, but you did all the repairs. Did you do all the repairs for your medical unit too, or was there a crew that did this? Or?
We had a crew. I just had the knowledge to go with it to help them. Because this is an old outfit. I was the youngest guy there. And
Were most of the people you worked with guys that had been in the service for a long time or
before
career?
the war even existed,
So they were career men?
it was the 1st Division, number 1. Actually, they got the call, the Big Red One, they called it. I don't know if you ever saw the patch with the Big Red One.
Now, you were being under combat conditions that long. You must have been involved in the Bulge and into Germany and so on. Could you tell about that?
Well, I don't know how they categorized it, but I had 5 battle spots. And 1 is for the beach, the landing on the beach, so the other 4, I don't know. They divided it up in different areas for whatever we were doing.
Did you ever have trouble with your truck when it turned into the winter conditions and so on?
No.
You were able to keep them?
The truck was brand new when I got it. And all our equipment was brand new. When the division left Africa, they left all their equipment in Africa. And when they got up to England to get ready for the invasion, they given all new equipment. So it kept moving.
What about personal clothing and equipment? Was it sufficient for the cold? Did you have, you probably had a wool overcoat and,
Oh, yeah, big, very heavy OT wool overcoat, yeah.
long johns and, okay.
Everybody didn't have it, but it just happened that I had it anyway.
Now, the medical unit you were with, did they stay in tents, or did they ever use buildings at all?
Well,
Abandoned buildings?
we either slept in a ditch, or if they happened to capture a building, we commanded the building and set up in there. But that's dangerous, because the building is a target. So we didn't do that unless it was a safe area.
Were you involved in any of the liberation of POW camps or the concentration camps?
I was in the Buchenwald death camp. When we moved in there, the furnaces were still hot. They had been burning. They had all the bodies laying in the ditches, naked bodies, and they were putting them in the furnace and burning them for fertilizer. Prisoner of war camps, we liberated some of them. Some of these, what do you call them? You'd call it a concentration camp, I guess, that there would be French people, Italian people, and all
like the slave
we
labor
we called them
camps?
DPs, displaced persons. He would take somebody from France and put them in Czechoslovakia, where they didn't know anything of where they were, so they wouldn't run away, and then put them to work. Or somebody from Norway or something, then put them in Austria. You know, so everybody didn't know where they were really, with geography. And we captured a lot of these camps and carried the people back as far as we could. But they were rebuilding the railroads. So I remember I drove one trip 200 miles back to get unload this load of DPs at a railroad. The engineers had put the tracks back together. And then from there they went on to Antwerp because they were all Belgian on that particular load. And prisoners, I knocked off a general. I couldn't stand him. SS general. I had the open cab on a truck, and I had the top off. All I had was the windshield. And we were taking these German prisoners from the Harz Mountains. And we put 60 in a truck, standing up. The more you got in, the less they could do, because they were so wedged together and hanging over the sides. But this one on my truck, they only got 45 men in it. They couldn't get any more. We found out that up in the front there was an SS general, and that none of the men would stand near him, and he gave them all the room. So 15 men stayed back, and you couldn't make them move forward. They wouldn't go near him. So all right, they let it go at that. So go down the mountain, and this guy is standing up front, right above me. I can look up, he's right up there. And he's arms like this, you know, this fancy cap on, general cap. And all the guys they're all staying away from him. He's in charge, he's up front, he's taller than the rest of them. So he's standing high. I just didn't like that guy above me. I didn't trust him. And we were going down that mountain at 40, 50 miles an hour. every once in a while there was one of these pull-offs, you know, because the road was pretty narrow. There'd be a pull-off if anybody had an emergency. I saw these pull-offs. I saw one of them had a tree with a low horizontal branch. I came down there, I just cut into that thing and cut back out on the road again. And he's standing tall above the rest of them there, and he got him right across the head with the branch. He fell down in the truck, and they all jumped on top of him, stamped on him. That's the part I remember. The German soldiers were stamping on that officer, SS trooper.
So was he dead?
Yeah. No. A few years ago, I was in the hospital visiting somebody, and some fellow was there, and he said he was a historian on World War II, but he came from the South. He came from North Carolina, I think. But he was the son of the person that I was visiting in the hospital. I don't know, we got to talking, and he started telling the stories. And he's telling me that they captured 2 SS generals in the Hartz Mountains, but somehow one of them got killed. I said, I didn't know they had a record of it, but it's got to be the same guy. But I didn't have him hovering over my head anymore.
Mhm.
He was down. But the thing that surprised me was all of his men jumped all over and stomped on him and everything else. There was a big difference between German soldiers and SS soldiers.
Now, you mentioned also on your form that when you arrived in Czechoslovakia, you encountered the Russians.
Yeah.
Could you tell about that?
It's not too much to tell. We stopped at the Elbe River. The Russians were on that side and we were on this side. The only encounter I had is we heard there was a concentration camp on the other side of the river. There was all Italian prisoners. So we were told to go over there, load them up, and bring them back. So we crossed the imaginary line, and we got over there. I had 3 trucks. I got stopped by a Jeep. There were Russian soldiers with one of our Jeeps, with a .30 caliber gun on the Jeep, and all dressed like us because they had our uniforms, because we were giving them everything to fight with. But they were Russian, and they didn't want to let us in. So I said, okay, peace. Turned around, went back. Got the other side of back on our side of the river, and came back with a load of our company of our infantry. And this time we went through, and the Russians part of company let us go. We went in, we loaded all the Italian prisoners on the trucks and brought them out back to the American side. That's about all I had to do with the Russians.
Did you ever see Patton at all?
Pat, once.
What did you think of him? Did you?
A noisy guy, but a very good general. He knew what he was doing, and his men followed him. They didn't. I don't know how they didn't notice. They didn't like some of his ways, but they knew when he said something had to be done, it had to be done, and they would just do it. And it saved a lot of lives the way he did things. Instead of waiting around for something to happen before you addressed it, he said, let's go get him first. And that's almost the way we've got today with the terrorists. Go get them first before they come here again.
Now, were your officers in your unit, with it being a medical unit, was the the main officer, the commanding officer, was he a doctor or
They were all doctors.
all doctors? How did you like working with them or for them?
It wasn't bad. Like I said, I really didn't have that much to do with them because I was a detached service all the time. I was almost my own boss, so to speak. I went every place and every place that I was needed. I was the one guy that was in charge of me. Kind of a different outlook for a military.
Mhm. Now, when you were in Europe, did you remember where you were and what your reaction was when you heard about the death of President Roosevelt?
Well, we wondered what was going to happen then. We didn't know how Truman was going to be. But it was just sounded like it was such a shame that we were so close to finishing this thing and he didn't get to see it. That, to me, that would have been important. That he could have finished the job.
Now, being in combat so long, you must have had enough points to go back.
Yeah.
Were you ever in occupied Germany or Czechoslovakia at all, or did you go back right away?
I went back right away.
When were you discharged?
October 45.
Were you back in the States when you heard about the dropping of the atomic bombs?
No.
You were still in Europe?
Yeah.
How did you feel about that? Or how
Well, at first we thought that we were going to have to move out and go to the Pacific and invade Japan. But then when we heard that, I said, that's great. That solved my problem.
Yeah.
I think it was one of the best things we could have done at the time. See,
Now, when you returned to the United States, did you return the whole unit or
no,
return as individuals?
the unit stayed there and controlled the Nuremberg trials.
Oh,
The 1st Division was in charge of the Nuremberg trials. I guess they kind of thought that it was probably a good idea because we were the first ones to enter the war in Africa and followed all the way through the whole thing. You get to do the judgment.
So you weren't there for that?
No, that's when I shipped home.
How did you return home? How did you return home?
On a freighter,
Freighter? Okay. And where were you discharged?
Vortex.
All right. Did you ever make use of the GI Bill?
Yeah, I went to school for body and fender work.
Did you ever use the 5220 Club?
Yeah, I had to at that point. I wasn't working or anything. I went back to working on the farm, but there was no money in that.
Yeah. Did you ever join any veterans organizations after the war?
No.
Never have. You still haven't?
Still haven't.
Did you ever contact anyone that served with you or stay in contact?
Most of them aren't here anymore. And I had one that I did was nearby, but I don't know what happened to him. All of a sudden, he wasn't living there anymore. So I really haven't had any contact at all.
How do you think your time in the service changed or had an effect on your life?
The only thing I can say is that if I came back, and supposedly not in one piece, but I'm here, I wouldn't have missed it for the world. It was really an experience. And like some of these people here today, that I don't mean here, I'm just like,
Mhm.
generally speaking, they have no idea what anything is all about. All they know is they're free to do anything they feel like. And they think that that's enough. They don't know there's any cost involved, or how they got here, how many people before them did something that gave them this freedom. That's the thoughts I don't care for.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your interview.
Guys on a destroyer,
You went over on the destroyer?
yeah.
Okay.
The whole medical unit?
No, just a
Or
bunch of, just a group.
Mhm.
And we had 300 on there, only 200 fit inside. The other 100 stayed on the deck. We took turns on the deck. And it was the middle of winter, January. Took the
Yeah.
northern route. And everybody had a rope to tie themselves on the deck with. The ones that didn't use the rope, sometimes we lost them. That a destroyer at times had to dump ash cans off the side because it
So even though it was carrying troops, it still
functioned as a...
functioned as a destroyer?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was hanging onto a post like this, watching them kick the ash cans off the back, trying to... The submarine might be down there someplace. I don't know if there really was one there or not, but you weren't taking chances.
Do you remember what destroyer it was that you went across?
I wasn't thinking about the name
Yeah,
at the time,
okay.
believe me.
Yeah, just curious.
No, I don't remember.
All right, thank you.